Hello, today we're going to talk about making one bowl chocolate cake. Have you ever been invited to a birthday party or a family gathering and you needed to bring a dessert, but making desserts wasn't your strong suit, and you didn't want to buy pre-made cake mix, but you had no other choice because you weren't good at baking? Well, today I'm going to introduce you to one bowl chocolate cake. It's as easy as the name suggests. You only need one bowl for all of the ingredients. And this one bowl chocolate cake is really fast from start to finish. It only takes 50 minutes. A little background about one bowl chocolate cake is that my mom started baking it when I had bake sales for high school sports when we needed to fundraise. She got it down to where she could make it from start to finish within 40 minutes. One bowl chocolate cake is easy, especially if you're not a baker. It could either be made into a cake or it could be made into muffins, and the batter is the same. The only thing you change is which pan you put it in. So we're going to start off by turning the oven on to 350 degrees, and then we're going to start by cleaning the kitchen. This is most important because we don't want to have cross-contamination. The easiest way to prevent cross-contamination is to fill up the sink with hot water and dish soap and wipe down all the counters and where you're going to be cooking, and to wash your hands. So the ingredients we're going to use is 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 cups of sugar, a half a cup of baking cocoa, 2 teaspoons of baking soda, a teaspoon of baking powder, a half a teaspoon of salt, 2 large eggs, a cup of canola oil, a cup of buttermilk, and a cup of boiling water. For the utensils, we're only going to need 1 large bowl and some measuring cups. To start with, we're going to mix all the dry ingredients. The dry ingredients are the flour, sugar, baking cocoa, baking powder, baking soda, and the salt. So we're going to mix this together to make a confluent mixture. See, as you can see on the left, this is when I just added the ingredients, and on the right is when I whisked them together. Next, we're going to add the eggs, the boiling water, and the buttermilk. So we're going to add in the canola oil first. We're going to mix that in, and then we're going to add the boiling water. It is important to add the boiling water before you add the eggs so it has time to cool down so it doesn't cook the eggs. Once you've added the water, water and the eggs, you need to stir it quickly so the eggs don't start to cook. So we need to get the pan ready. So as you see here, I just used a 13 by 9 inch pan and greased the bottom with it. I stirred everything into the bowl, mixed it all together, and poured it into the cake pan. The oven should be preheated by now, so let's put it in and talk about the buttercream frosting. Before we talk about the buttercream frosting, we need to set the timer on the oven for 35 minutes, and then we're going to check it after that. To check it, we're just going to put a toothpick in the middle, and if we pull out the toothpick and it comes out clean, then the cake is ready to be taken out. So the buttercream frosting is super easy as well. The ingredients are powdered sugar, butter, vanilla, and milk. It is important to take out the butter at least a day before you want to make the frosting because it needs to be soft and malleable, and we don't want to melt the butter because that's what gives the frosting its texture. So in a large bowl, we're going to whip the butter. As you see here, it starts out soft and ends with my whisk, just hand beating the butter. If you have a mixer at home, that will be a lot easier. I do not have a mixer, so I just used a whisk. But you're going to whisk it until it's consistency like a frosting. So then we're going to add the rest of the ingredients. It doesn't matter what order you add them to. So the ingredients are a half a cup of softened butter, 2 cups of confectioner's sugar, a cup of baking cocoa. If you want to make chocolate frosting, I decided to not make chocolate frosting because I do not like chocolate on chocolate cake, chocolate frosting on chocolate cake, so I just made a plain buttercream frosting. And then you're going to add 1 1/2 teaspoons of vanilla and 3 to 4 tablespoons of 2% milk. Now this varies because people like thicker frosting. I like a more runnier frosting on my cake, so I added 5 tablespoons of milk. So we're going to whip that together and put it in the refrigerator. So the cake is done, and we are going to put that in the refrigerator as well because I did not have a lot of time. You could either let it sit out on the counter for an hour to be completely cooled before we need to put the frosting on. I put it in the refrigerator, and it just speeds up the process a little bit. So now we're going to frost the cake. The cake and the frosting sat in the refrigerator for about a half an hour. So frosting the cake is kind of difficult. If we put too little of icing or frosting on, then we're going to have the cake rip up and it's not going to turn out the way we want it to. So I figured out that if we use a rubber spatula and scoop all the frosting out and put it on the cake as dollops or little circles around the cake, we can get it to where the frosting spreads nice and evenly and it won't rip up the cake because there's already a lot of frosting on there. So the frosting technique is, my mom showed me this, it is a little difficult. We need to make sure we're not going in a ripping pattern, so in a wave-like pattern is the best way to spread the frosting. Oops. I'm going to show you that here. See how I'm just going back and forth, grabbing a little bit of frosting at a time and not being too vigorous by digging frosting. I wanted to make sure it gets all over the cake. So here's the cake when it finished. I set it in the refrigerator just to make it cool, cool it down a little bit so the frosting hardens on the cake. Bottom left here is a picture of this delicious moist cake. And that is it. Thank you for watching my presentation.